My name is Albert Daniels, and I am the Manager for Stakeholder Engagement with the Internet Cooperation for Assigned Names and Numbers. That is what ICANN stands for. And since I only saw one hand from someone who knows what ICANN is all about, the rest of you are in the right place, because the purpose of my presentation today is to explain to you what ICANN is and what ICANN does and why it is important for you to participate in the policy within ICANN. Hands up everybody in here who has a cell phone with them right now. Everybody, right? Is that even a question? Hands up anybody who has 2 or more cell phones with them. Okay, a few of you. Hands up everybody who did not check their email for the day yet. 1 person, 2, 3, okay, have not checked their email. The point I'm trying to make here is that the internet and communication has become critical and important to our personal lives and to our business activities. And many of us could not comprehend what life would be like if there was no internet. And ICANN is involved in certain dimensions of the internet, and as you'll see in a little while, if ICANN was not operating and if ICANN was not functioning and if there were no policies within ICANN, then there would be no internet. And that is why you need to understand what ICANN does, and you need to understand why you should be participating in the work of ICANN. Now, the internet is what we refer to as an ecosystem, and we are very familiar with the traditional ecosystem that has many organisms that interact with each other. But in the internet ecosystem, you have organisms, you have entities, you have individuals, you have organizations, you have processes and policies. And the internet has grown in the way that it has because the ecosystem has been an open place, it has been a collaborative place, and it has been a place where all of the stakeholders can contribute to what actually happens. So if we look at a deeper explanation of what the ecosystem of the internet is, we see that there are processes, individuals, and there is an element of coordination, and there's several different parts. ICANN is one of those parts within the internet ecosystem, and ICANN has a very specific function related to names and numbers. So there are other organizations that you would hear about when we talk about internet governance. You may hear about the Internet Society, you may hear about regional internet registries, and there's several organizations, but what you need to understand is that each of these organizations interact with each other, and you are in a position to contribute to what happens with ICANN. So ICANN essentially takes care of the naming and numbering with regard to communications on the internet. That cell phone that you have for sending email and for sending WhatsApp messages and text messages, it needs to have a unique number and a unique name in order to communicate with other devices on the internet, which also need their unique names and numbers. And what ICANN does is it manages that system of unique names and numbers, and it also implements policies surrounding that system of naming and numbering. And you are in a position, from government, private sector, end users, civil society, all of these stakeholders in what we call a multi-stakeholder environment are in a position to contribute to the policies which determine how those names and numbers are used. And we'll go a little bit more detail into that in a minute, but I have a short video which tells you in a very graphic way what ICANN is and what ICANN is all about. So I hope the sound for the video is on. I don't see it.
What does ICANN do? Competition and choice. From accrediting over 1,000 registrars to introducing new top-level domains, ICANN works to expand consumer choice by fostering competition and innovation in the domain name marketplace. We Which functions does ICANN coordinate? The domain name system, Internet Protocol Address Allocation, the Protocol Parameter Registry, root server systems, generic top-level domain name system management, country code top-level domain name DNS, and time zone database management. Security and stability. ICANN supports DNS security through technical training and engagement, coordinating and collaborating with the community in the implementation of standards such as DNSSEC. Interoperability. ICANN's work enables new technologies to flourish while maintaining interoperability across the global internet. For example, management of the unique protocol identifiers allows communication using secure connections between users. Contractual compliance. ICANN oversees the contracts it maintains and enforces consensus policies developed through the community-driven process. ICANN's contractual compliance function seeks to ensure compliance with the agreements and the consensus policies. Who's involved? A number of groups, each of which represents a different interest on the internet. All of them come together with the board of directors. The supporting organizations on addressing, country code names, and generic names. The advisory committees, at large, governmental, the root server system, security and stability. And the technical advisory bodies, the technical liaison group, and the Internet Engineering Task Force. How do I participate? Sign up for updates at myicann.org. Join one of the many public comment forums on ICANN's website. Attend ICANN's public meetings in person or online to provide input at a public forum. Or join one of ICANN's supporting organizations or advisory committees.
Perhaps if you think of the analogy of a church, if you ask a young child, what is the church? They point and they say, okay, that is the church, and they point to the building. But then we all know that the church is more than the physical building. The church is the community of persons who actually participate in doctrine and so on. And it is similar with ICANN. You have the functional entity, but you have the ICANN community, which is essentially a multi-stakeholder global community, where again, government, private sector, academic community, end users, technical community, all participate. And there's several different ways, as you've heard, to participate. You can participate physically, and also you can participate remotely. Now, if we go through this list quickly, these are some of the technical functions that the organization that ICANN is takes care of. The domain name system, when you put a web address into your browser, www.ictsummit.sr, the browser translates that by using a system called the DNS so that the computers can communicate and you can get to the right website, correct website. And all of these are very technical functions that ICANN coordinates. But if you look at ICANN as an organization, ICANN essentially serves the globe. And ICANN is a global entity. There are 3 administrative hubs for ICANN, one in Los Angeles, one in Istanbul, Turkey, and one in Singapore. And these hubs essentially serve the globe and make sure that you are able to speak to someone in any part of the world 24/7 with regard to one of those technical functions. And in addition to that, since ICANN is a global entity, we have what are referred to as engagement centers, because a key aspect of what happens within ICANN is discussion, debate, policy development. And in order for persons from across the globe to participate, ICANN has set up engagement centers to cover the different regions. There is an engagement center that covers Latin America and the Caribbean. That engagement center is in the territory of Uruguay, Montevideo, and One of my colleagues covers Latin America, and I cover the 28 territories in the Eastern Caribbean. It is very interesting because we have 5 or 6 different languages. My Dutch is not that good. Perhaps maybe next time when I come, I can make half of my presentation in Dutch. I'm working on that. But the whole idea, and we are fortunate that you speak English, but the whole idea is to engage you, engage the community, explain to you what is going on, so you can see what is of value to you and then decide how you can participate. So you've heard about some of the supporting organizations. These are sort of working groups within ICANN. There are groups that support the country code domain names, like .sr for Suriname, and there are groups that support the generic domain names, like .com, .edu, and many of the newer ones that have come out recently. And policy is developed by many of these entities within ICANN using what we call a bottoms-up process with stakeholder consultation, proposing policy, discussing policy, commenting on policy, and then having the board of ICANN itself making final decisions on policy. And within that ICANN board, you have multi-stakeholder participation. There are individuals from various backgrounds, various countries, and with various interests. And the interesting thing about ICANN is that regardless of your background, there is a place for you, either in one of these supporting organizations, one of the advisory committees, one of the technical bodies, and there is also the opportunity for you to serve at a higher level, maybe on some of the councils of these entities, and eventually at the board level of ICANN. So it all depends on what is of interest to you, and you would find that within ICANN, there is a place for whatever you're interested in. Now, when we look at IP addresses, hands up everybody in here who has some idea of what an IP address is. 1, 2, okay, almost everybody, right? 192.168.something.something. That is the unique identifier that your mobile phone, that your laptop, that your desktop, and your tablet needs to have to communicate over the internet. And as I said, ICANN manages that system of IP addresses through an entity within ICANN known as IANA, the Internet and Assigned Names Authority. And there are policies which determine how those addresses are assigned. Should I give IP addresses only to my friend Carlton because we drink beer together? Or should there be an open and transparent process where everyone follows, a very transparent approach to getting these addresses? And what are the policies? We have heard something about IPv4 and IPv6. There are two systems of numbering. The old system, IPv4, is now running out. And if new persons want to come and get IP addresses for their devices, they are most likely not going to be able to get an IPv4 address. So what do we do with the small number of IPv4 addresses that are still available? Who decides what happens with those? You. If you participate in ICANN policy development, you're the ones who can actually contribute to the decision on who gets these IP addresses. And this is what we are talking about. Who gets domain names? .amazon. .amazon is one of those new generic top-level domains which are available. Now, should the company that sells books and other products over the internet get that domain name, .amazon? Or should the Amazon region get that domain name? Who is going to stand up and speak on behalf of the region? Who is speaking on behalf of the company? These are issues that are discussed within the ICANN community, and policy is set in a bottoms-up process within ICANN to address all of these issues. Now, one of the pillars, the key pillar of ICANN operations is what we call the multi-stakeholder model, where everyone who has an interest in what is going on comes together and they discuss the issues. And I can tell you, ICANN meetings are very interesting places. There's some pretty big fights when you have, opposing views on different points. Amazon, the country, Amazon, the region, Amazon, the company. That is people have very strong views on various issues. But in the end, as a result of utilizing a multi-stakeholder process, which can be complicated, which can take a lot of time, which, causes some tense situations, but by using that multi-stakeholder process, whatever you end up with at the end has more legitimacy. If you just have one or two guys in a room deciding what happens with ICANN and with IP addresses, then their views are what will determine what happens with the technology. But this technology is not managed in that way because of ICANN. Within ICANN, all of the stakeholders have a contribution, they have a say, their point of view is considered seriously, and in the end, regardless of what decision is taken, their viewpoint has been considered. So there are some important things that are happening in internet governance, and these are three of the important things that have taken place over the last couple of months. Historically, the United States government, through the Department of Commerce, has had what we refer to as oversight over the IANA function. Remember, the IANA function is that function of distributing and managing the names and numbers. And since the internet is a global resource, from the inception of the IANA function, even with the agreement with the US Department of Commerce, there was the understanding that at some point, the oversight of the IANA function would move away from a single chamber of commerce or a single government to a situation where a multi-stakeholder entity would be providing that oversight. And that is only fair because the internet does not just affect the US government or any other government for that matter. It affects all of the end users who use it for commerce, for economic and social development, and for private use. So recently, the US government, and there's a short clip on that, made the announcement that it was ready to relinquish that oversight. And it asked ICANN to engage you, the internet community, to come up with a proposal for what this new oversight body, what this new oversight mechanism should be. So the US government is saying, how should IANA be managed? And it is asking you to make input. And this is why at a national level and at a regional level, we need to get together. We need to form these multi-stakeholder groups, maybe 2 from government, 2 from private sector, 2 from the academic sector, 2 from the technical community, 2 representing the end users. And you sit down and you say, how can we organize ourselves? ICANN has been asked to make this proposal. We, from Suriname, should be making some input into the shape that entity should be in. And this is very important because if you don't participate, then others will, and they will decide what happens with oversight of the IANA function. Similarly, and perhaps even before that announcement was made, there was a lot of debate over how the internet should be governed generally. The internet started as an educational tool and everything was open. I wanted to send a message to my friend at another university or colleague professor, and everybody could see everything. But all of a sudden, commerce, governments started using the internet for classified and confidential communication. And all of a sudden, issues of privacy and security started arising, and the issue of who is in charge, how is this resource governed, came up. So recently, there was a big meeting called the Net Mundial meeting, which took place in Sao Paulo, and all of the stakeholders got together, and they made comments about the future of internet governance. You should be making similar comments. You should be participating in the dialogue. You should be saying what you are happy with, what you would like to see, what you disagree with. And this is what the ICANN community is all about. And of course, we've spoken a little bit about the IPv4 and IPv6 situation. So essentially, the US government, as I indicated, announced that they are ready to give up the oversight of the IANA function. And there was tremendous reaction from international organizations, from governments, from technical organizations from across the globe, but in the most part, we can safely say that 95% of the entities were in agreement of the US government's announcement to give up the oversight of IANA. And this short video is a video by the President and CEO of ICANN, Fadi Chihadi, and he's making some comments on this IANA transition. He explains it a little bit more and explains why you should be participating in what happens with this IANA transition.
To transition that stewardship to the global community. We believe this is a historic moment. It is the culmination of a process that was envisaged from the beginning of ICANN, from the inception of ICANN. But today that is possible thanks to the ICANN community, thanks to the maturity of the global community, and the readiness of everyone to embrace our responsibilities in the coordination of the unique identifier system which has made the Internet possible over these years. We believe the US decision is a very important decision, and it's a decision that calls upon all of us to show our readiness to build mechanisms that are global, that are inclusive, that have governments, private sector, civil society, and all Internet users participate openly in designing how the Internet Unique Identifier System, administered by ICANN and based on the good policies and standards that have been produced by our fellow technical organizations, the IETF and the regional Internet registries, how the world will have true accountability delivered to it. We believe this is possible, and we invite everyone to participate in this process. Many people will ask today, what does this mean and what are the changes ahead? Well, let me start by saying that what we do today and what the US government has done stays unchanged. What our sister organizations in the Internet technical community do remains the same, unchanged. We all continue. What will change is how will the entire community, the global community, as equal partners across all sectors, including governments, have the confidence that we are performing our functions in an accountable, transparent way according to the wishes of the global community. That role was in the hands of the US government and will now be transitioned. Now it won't transition immediately. First, we are being asked by the US government, ICANN, to convene the global community and to discuss how we replace the US role. And that we will start immediately. The security and stability of the unique identifiers that underpin the technical infrastructure of the Internet are our #1 priority. It's everyone's priority. And we will not do anything that will change the unblemished record of administering these functions that we have held over the last 15 years. Instead, this is a moment of triumph. This is a moment where the multi-stakeholder model shows that it is mature and ready, and we no longer need the stewardship of one government. We now need the world's stewardship to come and ensure that our functions are performed as requested by the global community. Now we need to convene everyone, and we will start this immediately. Today we will publish a schedule of activities that will lead us to come together through webinars, through public consultations, and through various meetings to ensure we're all participating in this transition process mechanism. The first such meeting will be at the Singapore ICANN 49 meeting, which happens to start on the 23rd of March. All are welcome to this meeting. You may participate in person, you may participate remotely. We need you there, we need you to participate. Without you, this process is not legitimate. This process is not the world's process. So please come and please participate. We start today and we welcome you in Singapore.
The IANA function, like I said, is a function which distributes IP addresses globally. It's done through what we call the RIRs, the Regional Internet Registries. And there are 5 RIRs that serve the globe. And you would see that LACNIC is the one which serves the Suriname region and the rest of the Caribbean. Part of the Caribbean is also served by ARIN. But the most important point is that without your input into what's happening with the IANA transition, then there will not be as much legitimacy. Fadi mentioned that there are a series of meetings that are taking place. The contract between the US government and ICANN expires in September, and we are very hopeful that with the input of the community and with the utilization of the multi-stakeholder model, that we can come up with a framework, with a proposal for the transition from the US government oversight into a multi-stakeholder oversight. And ICANN by itself has 3 meetings per year in different places. You heard about the last meeting in Singapore, but there is a meeting coming up in June in London from the 22nd to the 26th of London. You can all participate in that meeting. Now, I'm not saying that ICANN is going to give you an airline ticket and pay for your hotel, to go to London, but you can participate remotely. And there is a very sophisticated and effective system of remote participation. You can see the video of the speakers, you can hear the audio, you can see the slides that are used in presentations, and there is a little chat box where you can ask your questions. You can make your contributions, and there's someone designated to supporting remote participants who will take your questions and ask them live while the meeting is going on. So being physically distant from London or from any other place that an ICANN meeting is taking place is not an excuse for you not to participate, and you can let your voice be heard. And in addition to the ICANN meetings, there are other meetings that are taking place by other groups and so on. On Friday, Carlton Samuels from the at-large constituency within ICANN will be telling you a little bit more about how end users can participate in all of these ICANN processes, both physically and remotely. But the moral of the story is that you should all participate. We spoke about NetMundial, and you can make a note of that website link. But NetMundial was this meeting where, for the first time globally, government, private sector, civil society, academic community, and end users got together, and they started talking about all of the issues surrounding what internet governance should look like. It was a bottoms-up process, not a process where a prime minister or president or one person, set out policy which was then implemented. No, it was a process which was developed by full participation of all of the stakeholders. And this process resulted in a statement which is published on the website, essentially saying what the final result of all of these discussions were. And I encourage you and I invite you to visit the NetMundial website and take a look at that statement. And this is an indication of the 2 key issues that were discussed. How should internet governance take place? What are the principles? And how are we going to move forward from one stage to another with regard to the new phase of internet governance? So everything in ICANN takes place with full community input. And basically what we are saying is that there should be full participation of everyone who has an interest in the technology. This slide speaks a little bit about one of the groups within ICANN called At Large. And I will not go into much detail on that. Carlton is here, and he will be speaking on Friday about why the at-large community is important to you, end users, not necessarily having a technical background or even a business background or other backgrounds for that matter. Just a simple end user who is doing something on the internet has a place in the internet ecosystem. So you'll be hearing a little bit more about that on Friday, and there's some brochures at the back of the room that Carlton has put in his suitcase. I think he had to pay some overweight charges, so please don't let him travel again with those brochures. So essentially, the one word that I really want to leave you with is Participate, participate, participate. Go to the ICANN website, find out about the section within ICANN that you feel you can hook into, that you feel will allow you to get more value out of what is happening with the internet. Speak to others in the community, speak amongst yourselves nationally, come up with national positions on internet governance issues and feed these into regional organizations like the Caribbean Telecommunications Union and any other regional organization that is taking positions to the global ICANN community. Join one of ICANN's supporting organizations or advisory committees, and you don't need any special qualifications. There are some technical groups where you need to have a technical background, but essentially it is open to all, and you actually can plan a career in internet governance areas or in the areas of technical internet issues, which in the end will bring more value to the impact that ICANN and the internet can have on your economic and social development. So essentially what we are working towards is a single internet which is open, interoperable, safe and secure, and each of you from your various sectors has an input to make on policy concerning how the internet is governed. Okay, that's a very good question. And this is another area that is very topical right now within ICANN, the new GTLD program. The G stands for generic top-level domains. What are generic top-level domain names? We used to have .com, .org, .edu, and that was boring, right? We wanted to have new names, .hotel, .cars, .food, okay, .suriname. All right, so ICANN set up a system where it opened up the GTLD process to new top-level domain names. And companies, organizations globally could apply for whatever name that they wanted. And it was a very long process, and to be honest, it was very expensive, the first and the second round. But essentially, it was a scenario, if you could afford it, that would allow you to get your own top-level domain. So if you were in the shirt business, you could apply for .shirt. Or if you were in the restaurant business, you could apply for .restaurant. But in addition to that, because to be honest, it's only really the large companies globally that can afford to go through those processes. But in addition to buying a top-level domain, there is another lower level, not lower, but second level opportunity to become what we call a registrar. So you as a business can sell domain names below maybe .travel. Okay, you may have a particular type of travel that you are interested in selling, you know, globally, because you are in the web business and your companies may be local, they may be regional, they may be global. So there is an opportunity as well for you to become a registrar. You speak to one of the big players and you say, okay, I want to resell domain names below your top-level domain name. Now, we can go into further detail with regard to that, but there is a commercial opportunity with regard to top-level domain names. But you need to research it a little bit more. There's a website called newgtlds, newgtlds.icann.org. I noticed Carlton was putting up his hand. Maybe he may want to make a comment as well.
The policies that define how the market operates is set by ICANN. And part of the reason why you see the speculators have managed to grab so much of that real estate is because they are the ones who fill the rooms when the decisions are made. I've been in that room. We try to get ICANN and people like us from the South involved in domain name market by starting what we call an applicant support working group. And we managed to get out of ICANN some concessions for people from our side of the world who might want to get into the domain name market. Unfortunately, not very many people participated. So although we had some support, we didn't have anybody. We probably had 3 or 4 applications from Africa and Latin America and Caribbean. And all of the funds weren't used up. That round is passed. But we are hoping that any subsequent round, that we even get better concessions for people from our side of the world participating in the domain name market space. So keep it up. We'll love to hear that you have interest in being a part of the domain name market. And we also want to see you in the discussions, because that's how you get attention. You have to stand up, put up your hand and say, I have a problem. And you can't do this because it impacts me and probably 200 million other people.
Yeah.
So it's very important for you to participate. Thank you so much for that.
And that is a very important point. Those who attend and those who participate set the policy. Now, we are very different in the Caribbean to North America and Europe and Africa, and in some cases our economies are much smaller than those larger economies. So when this program was set up by a sort of a North American involvement and input, then it's designed for them, and not really for us in the Caribbean, because we did not participate as much in determining what the shape and the structure would be. But if more of us stand up and more of us say, look, this is too expensive for the Caribbean, our economies are smaller, there needs to be a special consideration. Suriname wants to do this in terms of economic and social development using the internet, but you're making it hard for us. If we stand up and we make those points in the ICANN forum, and you don't have to fly up to the United Kingdom to do it, you can do it right here from Suriname from the 22nd to the 26th of June. This is this month, and you can let your voice be heard. That's a very important point, and that's why we flew all the way down here to explain all of this to you. These are just some quick stats on what's happening with the new GTLD program, and we expect that about 1,500 new names will be put into the route by the end of this year.